So today we're doing class number 5, and we'll be covering some more basics in Vedic astrology. I'll be introducing the Sanskrit names. Oops. I'll be introducing the Sanskrit names for the planets, the grahas, and for the signs, the rashis. And then I'll be teaching you guys the aspects, the planetary aspects, and what kind of aspects all the planets have. And then I'll be giving you guys short little quizzes right after each lesson on the planetary aspects. That way you guys can show me your understanding of it. Okay, so we'll start with a short little mantra for Ganesh to bless this class. Usually I'll do one before class, but I wanted to introduce the custodians of astrology, and Ganesh is one of them, Sri Ganesh. And I'll just say the mantra really quickly. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. So that's one of the things I wanted to introduce in this class also. Who are the custodians of Jyotish? So these are the 3 custodians of Vedic astrology. So Sri Ganesh, Sri Saraswati, and Sri Dakshinamurti. And most people know about Lord Ganesh because he's the remover of obstacles, and he's the main custodian for Jyotish, for Vedic astrology. He grants knowledge and wisdom, and any obstacles that we might have in reading a chart, he removes those blockages and lets us see clearly. And because he also helps us see more clearly with our third eye. So Lord Ganesh. And Sri Saraswati, she's the patron deity for arts and for music, but she's the custodian for knowledge and wisdom as well. So she grants, she usually has a book in one of her hands, or she's holding a book, but she helps in studying and acquiring knowledge and wisdom. And then the third custodian that most people don't know about is Sri Dakshinamurti. And he is an incarnation of Lord Shiva. So he is the aspect of Lord Shiva which grants wisdom and knowledge as well. And so that's why he's also one of the custodians for Jyotish. And so if you guys either say a mantra to any of them, to any of the 3, before taking up any studying of Jyotish or of anything else, it will open your mind and you'll allow the energy to flow through to allow you to be able to receive the information and to accept it more readily into your consciousness. So those are the 3 custodians. Okay, so we'll be introducing the Rashis here, the signs. So the Sanskrit name for sign is Rashi. And I wanted to introduce the Rashi names. That way, when you guys ever go to a website, sometimes they have the names in Sanskrit. So sometimes they'll be talking about having Chandra Lagna in Mithun, or having Karka Lagna or something like that. And you guys might have to do your research and see, okay, what are they talking about? Which one's Kumbha? What sign is that? So I want to introduce these signs and have you guys memorize them, or at least recognize them when you guys see these online. So I'll just go over all of them. And then I might interchangeably use the signs in English and Sanskrit. So I might randomly say Mesha or Danus, Vrishika, or I might say Scorpio. So I might use them interchangeably. That way we can, that way we can practice understanding the Sanskrit names. So Aries is Mesha, and literally the one in green right at the bottom where it says a ram, that's the literal meaning of Mesha. So right on the bottom it says the literal meaning of that name in Sanskrit. So Mesha literally means ram, and that's for Aries. And I'm using the South Indian chart here, and these signs are placed in each little box where they're placed. They will always be in that particular box. So where it says Mesha at the top, that will always be the sign of Aries. So Mesha is Aries, and that little box will always be that sign. And the next one, you go clockwise. The next one is Vrishabha, and that one is Taurus. So Vrishabha is Taurus, and it means bull. The third one, which is Gemini, is Mithun, and that means either lovers or twins. So it's a couple usually. That's Mithun. The next one is Cancer, and that's Karka, and that means crab. The next one is Simha, which is Leo, and it means lion. The next one, Kanya, that's Virgo, and it means virgin or maiden. The next one is Tula, and that one is Libra, and that means scale or balance. The next one is Vrishika, and that means scorpion. The next one, Danus, that's Sagittarius, and that means bow. Makara, that literally means crocodile, and that's Capricorn. Kumbha, that's Aquarius, and that means small paw or flashy man. And finally, Mina is Pisces, and that means fish. So you guys I'll send you guys this particular chart. That way you guys can study it at a later time and be able to recognize the Sanskrit names for each Rashi. I went ahead and put the glyphs for each planet because I'm using these glyphs in some of the examples. And so this is something that I'll also send you guys. I will send you guys a copy of these 2 pages that shows the glyphs and the Sanskrit name for them. That way you guys can know how to say these in Sanskrit, or when you see the astrological glyph, you guys know what planet it's referring to. So Venus will either say VE in the chart, or it'll say SHU or SK. In Sanskrit, it's Shukra. And Venus is a naturally benefic planet. And so intrinsic nature means Naisargika. Naisargika means intrinsic nature. So Venus is a Naisargika Shubha Graha. And Shubha means auspicious. It means benefic. And when you look down at Shani Saturn, it says Naisargika Papagraha. So Papa means malefic. Shubha means benefic. So Saturn is Shani in Sanskrit, and he's a natural malefic planet. So he's a Naisargika Papagraha. The next one is Rahu, and Rahu is a natural malefic as well. So Naisargika Papagraha. Ketu, these Rahu and Ketu, they're the nodes of the moon. So Rahu is the north node of the moon, and Ketu is the south node of the moon. And basically, what that means is that they are the shadow planets. They're the ones that cause the eclipses in the sky. So usually when there's an eclipse, it's either caused by Rahu or Ketu on the sun or the moon. That's why they say there's a solar eclipse or there's a lunar eclipse. That means that the moon and the sun have joined with the nodes of the moon, the Rahu and Ketu axis. And so these are shadowy planets, and they're considered papagrahas. Okay. The next one is sun. In Sanskrit, it's Surya. And sun is not considered papa, he's considered krura, which means cruel. So because sun is the auspicious planet, obviously he's the one that sheds light on everyone, and the sun is the one that all the planets absorb the light of the sun. He is a natural malefic planet, but he's considered to be cruel because, you know, sometimes if you've ever been in a desert and you feel the hot sun just coming down at you, you can probably understand what they mean by cruel. You know, you feel the heat, the intense heat, and you get thirsty and you need shade. So that's the reason it's considered malefic. It's because the other planets, when they come very close to the sun in the sky, they become combust. And so they're usually combust when they come within 4 to 6 degrees of the sun. That's what I consider combust. Sometimes you'll see that a planet is about 14 degrees, and if you're using an app or a software program, it'll say combust, but I don't consider that combust. I only consider 4 to 6 degrees close to the sun as combust. So basically the sun will combust other planets if they come too close to the sun, and that means that it'll burn up their natural significations. Not every signification of the planet, but the material aspect of that planet. And we'll talk more about that when we go into more advanced classes and we start talking about conjunctions and stuff and things like that. The moon is Chandra, and Chandra is a natural benefic, and I think I wrote it down here. I'm not sure why it's not showing, but Chandra is a Naisargika Shubha Graha, natural benefic. Now, the moon can also be considered inauspicious when it's waning. So usually a moon that is waxing the second half of the month on the waxing moon, that is usually considered auspicious. And the waning moon, especially when it's very close to the sun, when it's waning and it's coming when it's getting very, very dark, that is when it is considered to become more inauspicious. Mars is a natural malefic, Mangal, and Mars is a Naisargika Papagraha. Mercury is considered a natural benefic in the Shastra. So Mercury he's a natural benefic, but he's neutral. So usually he takes the significations of the planets that he's conjoined with. So if he's with a natural malefic, then Mercury, Buddha, will turn slightly malefic, or when he's with a benefic, he'll turn slightly benefic. And Jupiter's the most auspicious planet. Jupiter is a Naisargika Shubha Graha, and in Sanskrit it is Guru. So I'll go over them really quickly one more time. Venus is Shukra, Saturn is Shani, Rahu and Ketu the same. Sun is Surya, Moon is Chandra, Mars is Mangal, Mercury is Buddha, and Jupiter is Guru. Okay, so I wanted to go over the Rashi rulership. This is something we covered in the last class. And these are the same. This is the South Indian chart again. And now, do you guys all mostly use South Indian chart, or are you guys still learning and you guys really don't have a preference yet? So let's see. Ritu, do you have a preference? I'm not sure. Is she? Ritu, are you there? Let's see who else. Surinder,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have a preference for South or North Indian?
North Indian, ma'am.
Okay. And I'll be using the North Indian examples also in some other in the charts. Who else uses North Indian? Yotsna, I know you use South Indian.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll be using both examples, but I'm using this one to show the Rashi rulership. So this is what we went over last week. And so I'll just go over it one more time. So Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. And Aries is the top box where it says MA for Mars. And the bottom one is Scorpio. And then the next one, Taurus and Libra for where it says SK, but that's for Shukra. The top one is Taurus, and the bottom one is Libra, and those are ruled by Venus. And then where it says BU, the green one, that's Buddha. That one's ruled by Mercury. So the top one is Gemini and the bottom one is Virgo. Then the next one where it says CH, the moon, Chandra, that one's Cancer. And then right beneath that is Surya, which is the sun. That's Leo, ruled by the sun. And then when we go to the left part of the chart on the top where it says GU for Guru, Jupiter, Jupiter rules those two signs, and the top one is Pisces, the bottom one is Sagittarius. And then finally Saturn, Shani, he rules. The top one is Aquarius, and the bottom one is Capricorn. All right, so do you guys have any questions about the rulerships?
No.
Okay. So now let's move on to the planetary aspects. So, okay, put this one first. So let's see here. Okay. So drishti means aspect in Sanskrit, and yuti means conjoined or conjunct. And yuti means that when two planets are sitting in the same Rashi or in the same bhava, bhava means house, and Rashi means sign. So when they're sitting in the same Rashi or bhava, they're yuti. It's considered yuti or samyukta. Drishti means aspect. So when a planet is sending drishti to another planet or to another house, it is looking at that house or it is looking at that planet. So, for example, if a malefic planet, a Naisargika Papagraha, is looking at you, if a bad person is looking at you, you're not really going to feel comfortable. Now, if a natural benefic is looking at you, a Naisargika Shubhagraha, then you'll like it. Because when a good person is looking at you, that means it's auspicious. It means something good will happen. But if a bad person is looking at you, then sometimes that means something bad's going to happen. So that's what the planets do. They look at other planets and they look at other houses and they influence those other houses or planets based on their natural qualities, such as natural benefic or malefic, or based on the house that they rule. So, and we'll talk more about the houses that they rule in next class. But for now, I want to teach you guys how they send aspects to other houses. So every single planet sends drishti, sends an aspect to the 7th house at the opposite house from where they're sitting at. And the opposite house is the 7th house. So every single planet, wherever they're sitting in a chart, they look at the opposite house all the time, except for Ketu. Ketu is the only graha that does not send drishti. It doesn't send an aspect because Ketu doesn't have a head. And I will talk about the symbolism of the planets also in a future class, and I'll share the stories about them. But basically, Ketu doesn't have a head, and Rahu doesn't have a body. The nodes of the moon, Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is the head without the body, and Ketu is the body without the head. So, so Ketu is the only one that doesn't send drishti, but all the other planets do. And we'll start with Mangal. Mangal is Mars. So Mangal will send an aspect to the 4th and the 8th houses, besides the 7th house. They all send an aspect to the 7th, but Mangal also has the additional aspect of the 4th and the 8th bhava. And so the left chart that you guys are looking at, that's the South Indian chart. And the right chart that you guys are looking at, the one on the right side, is the North Indian chart. So since there's a couple of people that use the South and some people use the North, I'll be using both in that example. That way you guys, if you're already used to that chart. I mainly use the South Indian chart because that's the one that I started learning with. So it's easier for me, but I do know how to read both charts. And I'll just give a quick rundown on the difference between these two charts. So the South Indian chart is Rashi based. And that means that each little box that you guys see, each little square, is a specific sign. And the signs don't change. The Rashis, they will stay the same. So as I went over on the previous, this one right here, the Rashis are always going to be in those little boxes. So Meena, which is Pisces, will always be that top left box. Mesha, which is Aries, will always be that little box. So what you guys need to do is just memorize those little boxes and what sign those are. In class number 4, we went over that. So if you guys don't know how to do that, you guys can rewatch class number 4, and we went over all the signs and the signs that are at what planets rule each sign. So we went over that on class number 4. Now the North Indian chart and this is something we did not go over in a previous class, but the North Indian chart is based on houses. So it's Bhava based. The South Indian is Rashi based, sign based, and the North Indian is Bhava based. So that means that the houses never move. The houses will always stay the same, but the signs will move depending on what time the person was born. So, for example, on the South Indian chart, where you see, and let me get out of here so you guys can see my cursor. Okay, so this little box right here in the South Indian chart, that is always going to be house number 1. Okay, whereas on the South Indian, this little box is always Aries. And the houses will change depending on that little line right there. That's the ascendant. So if the person was born with a rising sign of Virgo, that little line will be right here, and that'll be the first house. But this box will always be Virgo. That little line will be the first house, and then you go clockwise. House 1, house 2, house 3, house 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it'll go, so the houses will change. So like in this chart, Capricorn, which is this Rashi right here, this is always going to be Capricorn. But this person happened to be born at a time where the rising sign was Capricorn. So now house number 1 is here, and now this is house number 2, and this is house number 3. And you could see little numbers here where it says 3, 4, 5, 6. So the houses will move, but the signs will stay the same. Now on this North Indian chart, the signs will move, but the houses will stay the same. So this is always the first house. It's always the ascendant. But this little symbol right here shows what Rashi it is. So that's Capricorn. That's the little symbol for Capricorn. And it goes counterclockwise. So this is house number 1, house number 2, house number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this one goes counterclockwise, and this one goes clockwise. Okay. Now, the second house, see that little symbol? That's Aquarius. So this is the second house of Aquarius. And this chart, that's the second house, and that's the little symbol. So Mangal sends Drishti to the 4th, the 7th, and the 8th bhavas. So in the South Indian chart, Mangal is right here. That's the glyph for Mars right here. Okay, so he's looking at the 4th house. So we're going to count the ascendant, which is the Lagna. That's always the first house. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why I colored it in red. Mangal is looking at the 4th house. He's sitting in the first house. And this is the chart of Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. He's a very famous yogi and spiritual teacher. Maharshi Mahesh Yogi is the one that brought transcendental meditation to the West. So he started in India in the 1950s. I think it was 1958. And then he started in India in 1957. And then in 1958, he came to the United States, and he traveled all over the US teaching transcendental meditation. And then he traveled all over the world. So he's a very famous meditation teacher from India. So he was born with a Capricorn ascendant, and he was born with Mars on the ascendant. And in this case, Mars exalted in the first house. So he's looking at the 4th house, which is this, and then the 7th house. So 1, 2, 3, 4, So in this chart, where is Jupiter sitting at?
7th house.
Yeah, 7th house. So he's sitting in the 7th house because that's the first house. And what houses is he aspecting?
Is it for me or Lindsay?
Either or.
So
Oh.
usually it's 5, 7, and 9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's 11th Aries
Mm-hmm.
and Gemini as
Yep.
Lagna
Mm-hmm.
and Leo 3rd
Yep.
house.
So he's aspecting the 5th house from itself, which happens to be the 11th house of the chart. And he's aspecting the 7th house from itself, which is Gemini, which is the ascendant. It's the first house. And he's aspecting the 9th house from itself, which is the 3rd house of the chart. Does that make sense, Lindsay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means that he's beneficially influencing the 11th house of gains and groups. He's beneficially influencing the first house, and he's beneficially influencing the 3rd house of the chart. Okay, so that kind of makes sense, right?
Yes.
All right. So now let's go to Saturn. So Saturn will always aspect the 3rd house, the 7th, and the 10th house. So to aspect the 3rd house from itself, the 7th, and the 10th. Okay, so in this chart, what houses is Saturn aspecting?
8th house,
Yes, the 8th house.
12th and 5th. No, 12th and 3rd.
Yes. So he's aspecting the 8th house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And he's aspecting the 12th house. And the 8th house happens to be Aquarius. And he's aspecting the 12th house. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And he's aspecting the 3rd house. So Saturn usually brings struggles to whatever house he's aspecting. He'll make you work hard for whatever it is that he's influencing. Okay?
Monica,
Yeah.
how do we know if Saturn is in like our house, or how do we know if Saturn is a part of our chart?
Well, all